Real estate in Canada has been in a bubble for years. Only those with a six-figure salary are able to actually purchase homes in the major cities such as Toronto and Vancouver. In a world where nearly 100% of household income is consumed by their costs to keep it, it will only be a matter of time before the trend reverses and slaughters the spectators. You came here for the truth, so let me unveil that for you. Let's talk about Canada today. Hello to all my fellow Canadians. This also applies to many regions around the world. So despite where you are, hang in there, stay tuned. Let's get into it right away. Let's make it as quick and concise as possible. Canada's GDP declined. Okay, we're looking at this here for October. The numbers are not staggering, but they are important. The GDP shrank unexpectedly in October as factories suffered their worst month in almost 3 years, adding to signs that the country's outlook is worsening. That's something that I definitely would agree with. Output fell 0.3%. And essentially what they're worried about, widespread declines in goods producing industries contributed to the largest monthly drop since May. When you have a commodities exporting nation, which Canada is considered to be that, anytime these commodities are not really doing well, they're not in a bull market, the country is going to suffer, and they can devalue their currency in order to be more attractive to exports. But if people simply aren't buying, you're going to be in big trouble, because that currency can decline, yet you're not able to export. So people are really getting hurt in two ways. This here just goes to show how dependent some nations are on particular industries. And what Canada is relying on at this time is the housing industry. It is considered to be that safe haven that many have been profiting off of for quite some time. You can't sustain an economy on housing. It just doesn't work like that. There isn't enough industry to build all of these homes and simply just continue building and have this generate an infinite rise in the economy. It doesn't work like that. There are supply and demand fundamentals which need to be abided by, and that is not happening right now in Canada. It's very clear in Vancouver and Toronto. All right, let's just move on here. What we're talking about is Canada, but also the US. Energy firms, including Imperial Oil and BP, will get a year of consultations to hash out the fate of their rights in Canada's Arctic after Prime Minister Justin Trudeau drilling freeze set the stage for a dispute over license extensions. Canadian leader and the U.S. president said this week that they would designate most of North American Arctic waters off limits to new activity, including all future oil and gas licensing in Canadian waters. And essentially what they're trying to do is this is all in relation to trying to preserve the environment and everything else. What I would say, not to get into that detail of that, the environment, this year isn't good, I believe, for the economy. I don't think that it is a good idea in that regard, simply because the economy isn't doing well and there needs to be more expansion in industry. Perhaps not the best industry sometimes. I'm just talking economically here. All right, look at this. Canada Pension Plan Investment Board sold its 45% stake in the former this building here, part of the Rockefeller Center complex in Midtown Manhattan, for $1 billion. The only reason I'm mentioning this right here is talking about pensions. and how desperate people are to have their pensions pay out when they retire. This is something that will afflict not just Canadians or those in the US, but essentially everywhere around the world. We have these unfunded liabilities which are going to hurt people. So they're relying on their homes, in a way, in Canada right now, to consistently be worth more year after year. And we'll get into that more in just a moment. Simultaneously hoping that their pensions and their retirement accounts will be there to satisfy the continuing increase in the cost of living, including the purchases needed to maintain a home. Of course, many people, particularly those who are purchasing homes now or in the last few years, are going to be holding on to their mortgages, many of them, for a very long time. And if they still have that mortgage by the time they retire, there's really no way they can retire because the prices are going to drown them. The amount of debt that they carry will drown them. Look at this here. How Canada's economy went from boom to recession so fast. And there's a lot of detail in this article here that I'm simply not going to get into, but hang in there for a moment. The crash, this article was actually from last year, but it was very relevant and allows me to segue into the next topic. Talking about the crash in China, particularly last year. The crash has done something else. It has laid bare serious problems with the narrative of China's growth miracle and the health of the resource countries that increasingly depend on it. It's also raised questions about Beijing's revered ability to successfully manage the levers of its economy, while the extreme and desperate measures are taken by officials to arrest China's stock crash, from jailing short sellers to imposing outright bans, you remember that, on stock sales by large shareholders. And then it said it flashed warning signs about what's in store for Canada as China continues to slump. Think about that. What does Canada do? Well, collapse in oil prices began more than a year ago, resumed as of late, snuffed out Alberta's energy boom more quickly and deeply than anyone expected. So what we were saying here is how these two countries interconnect, Canada and China. Now think about Canada as an exporting nation. They're exporting to China, but they're also, of course, exporting to the US. So think about this just for just 1 second as you see China perhaps requiring less, or they're purchasing from different partners. They're able to do those things on their own, mine their own things, use their own things. Then you have the US. If they're not doing well, if they're in a recession, Canada cannot export to them either. So it's sort of a trap. If Canada is not able to consume everything that it's mining or anything else, all the different commodities, they are not going to be able to simply utilize it. It's going to sit there. It's going to stockpile. Prices are going to decline on them. And this has been a problem clearly with oil for different reasons. Let's look at this. Okay, this is huge news. Anyone who lives in Toronto or Vancouver, you know exactly what I'm talking about. For those who live in Manhattan, San Francisco, and countless other places around the world, you know what I'm talking about. But check this out. Toronto is inching closer to Vancouver when it comes to housing prices. Specifically, this is according to the RBC study. Look at this. We're talking about unaffordability. Okay, that's how crazy the prices have become, that in fact 63.7% of the typical household income in the Greater Toronto area is being funneled into the costs of owning a home. Okay, that's including the mortgage, principal and interest, property taxes, and utilities. Okay, 64% is just to have a home. The magnitude of that is something that I don't believe was ever conceived 50 years ago, 100 years ago, where the prices were much, much more realistic. Vancouver remains the most costly city in the country to own a home with, can you believe it, 92% of the average household income needed to pay ownership cost. Guess what? That's ridiculous. Just in case you haven't figured that out for yourself. Nearly 100% of your money has to go to maintaining your home. What do you do when you want to buy food? That's the 8%, I guess. You want to be eating a lot of simple foods, that's for sure. All right. It takes a 6-figure household income to be able to afford a home in the Greater Toronto area. Then it talks about these places that you have to drive 90 minutes at least to be able to afford a home, and they still cost, let's pull out the highlighter, why not? 90 minutes from Toronto. Average homes cost $373,000. Lake Simcoe, for those who don't know, that's where people go up north for their cottage country. And you want to live there and you're still paying $373,000? Look at this. If you want to purchase a home in the Greater Toronto area, you need to have $124,000 in your household income. Sure, a lot of people might be able to do that, but that's not even, you're doing well. That's $124,000 and you're able to afford it. And that's something that has gone far beyond any sort of sense. It's gone far, far beyond. That's disgusting. It's ridiculous. The real estate technique fueling Vancouver's housing market. This is talking about assignments, and a lot of people make money on assignments. This is a real estate technique that is legal, except for the little bit of criminality, the illegalness that's going on, but I'll explain that right now. Assignments are basically, I want to buy my house from you. I agree to purchase it with an assignment clause in the contract. I put a future date, let's say 6 months from now, give myself some time, because what I'm going to do is actually sell that contract to another buyer. And that may take me, let's say it takes me 3 months. They then pick that up and I sell it at a profit. Maybe I make $50,000. That right there is netting people all kinds of profit. Despite the fact that there might be closing costs or anything else, there's no land transfer taxes, which are unbelievable in Toronto at this time and even in Vancouver. But what you see is prices being driven up dramatically. This article also, it's a huge article, but anyone interested in the real estate market, check this out. Check this article out. It's out of the Globe and Mail. It gets into all the details. It's very interesting. And basically what they say is that real estate agents are actually picking up the foreign buyers at the airport, bringing them to the hotels. They pick them up in the morning and they hit a neighborhood and they go from house to house to house, putting offers, very high offers, making them very interesting for people. The prices are being jacked up so dramatically at this time, and there are different reasons for that. It's not just one reason. It's not just foreign buyers, but as I said, also the assignments. There was one example in here that the individual sold his home for $1.6 million, which would seem really good. However, somebody bought it, tore the whole thing down, put 2 homes on the property and sold each for $3 million. I mean, things like this are happening, and it has gone parabolic. That is the proper term. That term is often overused, but in this case, it's dramatic. And here's another scene for some dramatic actions. China to boost the economy by getting people to jump out of planes. Essentially what they're talking about is they're trying to fuel the tourism and the industry that's not really as popular as it could be, but the economy is expanding, the markets are opening up slowly but surely, and this is the kind of thing that they're trying to bring money inward, not just through their conventional means, the public works projects and everything else. They're trying to get tourism in, and that has obviously expanded over the years, this year being one of them. And last but not least, just want to show you something wonderful. All right. Merry Christmas to everyone out there. As I record this, it's probably 2:30 in the morning on Christmas. So here is Santa Claus, just wishing you a Merry Christmas, a Happy New Year, and best wishes for 2017. I hope that Santa brought you what you wanted. This is the wonderful Janet Yellen, Ben Bernanke, put together in one. So beautiful, so wonderful. If you found this video informative, please give me a thumbs up. If you like what's on the screen right now, give me a thumbs down. If you found the video informative, I know you'll find my book, The Money GPS, even more informative. So check it out. It's at Amazon, where you have a look inside feature that allows you to flip through the pages of the book and see if you like it. Take care.